I just saw this statistic when it comes to ICP, which adds another reason as to why I have not given up when it comes to the internet computer. Now, nothing I say is financial advice, and I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, quite recently, I saw this statistic when it comes to ChainSpect, and they were indicating how as of January 13th, in the past 30 days from then, the internet computer saw around 90 million transactions in a single day, which actually indicated its strongest daily activity in over a month. Now, this may seem a little bit trivial because people may be thinking, who cares about this? Not even a big thing, like who cares? But my perspective is that if I see activity when it comes to a project, and at least something that could be indicated to be pretty impressive, right? Again, around 90 million transactions. That's like not such an easy thing to achieve. My thing is that if I take a look at, for instance, other projects out there, they don't have statistics like this. Sure, some of them may be doing better than the internet computer, but do I want to give up when it comes to a project that has activity like that? I don't think so. When it comes to ICP, I can only speak on my behalf. I can't speak on anyone's behalf. And again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But if I take a look at the aspects of the internet computer, I take a look at, for instance, Caffeine AI. I take a look at the aspects of the Solana and ICP integration. Why would I not think about, hypothetically, $100? That's my perspective. I'm still thinking about that, right? It hasn't left my mind. The reason why? One of these reasons could be the statistic that I saw recently. It shows activity. And what I've realized is that usually projects that have some activity that's still doing something, typically if there's an altcoin season, they sometimes, in some cases that I do see, they kind of go along with the ride because they just simply weren't forgotten about. When I take a look at the internet computer, it just hasn't feel like it's forgotten about when it comes to me. And also, at least when it comes to, I think, the community in general, because how would it have a statistic like that if people didn't really care about it anymore? However, in just a couple of days, I think something pretty cool could happen for the internet computer. What is that? That is when it comes to the World Computer Day event, which is going to be hosted in Switzerland. Now, Dfinity, some people like to find this event sort of questionable because they wonder why spend the time and resources and energy to have something like that. But we have to consider the sort of possible partnerships, collaborations, and new ideas that could happen from an event like that. Because there's many individuals there who already work in multinational corporations, who already work in very large enterprises, who are professors, in some cases individuals who have experience in AI, right? And then we take a look at just a bunch of speakers supposedly going to be speaking there. That's pretty impressive. I think that's setting a good tone for the internet computer moving forward. And we have to consider the narrative when it comes to the internet computer 2.0, Dfinity 2.0, and now recently, which I even made a video on when it comes to ICP, my latest video before this, it was about Caffeine AI 2.0 and how that was planned for February, right? So when I take a look at something like the internet computer overall, would I give up with all these 2.0s, so to speak, right? Also, on top of that, with the World Computer Day event, it's all just reasons why I have not given up and also why I have not stopped thinking about $100. We're around 25 times lower than $100, by the way. So now we're sitting around $4, right, when it comes to ICP, which I like it a lot better than as opposed to when it was around $2. This is the way to take a look at it. Why? Even though in theory, actually at $2, I could have dollar cost averaged more because now it's higher, before it was lower. But I like this as of right now because it at least showcased that ICP is sort of recovering a little bit with a good amount of other altcoins, right? If ICP was just kind of lagging behind, sure, it's whatever, I'll still dollar cost average anyways, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I like the recovery that it had quite recently. So being around 25 times lower than $100, the thing is this, when it comes to BNB, it's not around 25 times lower, in my perspective, than any point I could ever hypothetically see it maybe logically reaching if there was an altcoin season during the cycle. Like for instance, is Ethereum, realistically speaking, around 25 times lower than any point it could ever hypothetically reach if there was an altcoin season during this cycle? Some people out there they have this optimistic mindset of maybe 10 grand when it comes to Ethereum, but Ethereum is not over 10 times lower than that, even, right? It's not even 10 times lower than that. It's not even 5 times lower than that, let alone over 20 times, or even, let's say, around 25 times. When it comes to ICP, sure, I mean, 100 may seem kind of like, I guess, massive if I just take a look at it first glance, but I have to take a look at the market cap at that point. It's around 54 billion considering current circulating supply at 100. And when I see Dogecoin reaching over 80 billion years ago back in 2021, this market cap, I don't know if it seems so ridiculous in my perspective. Also, on top of that, the Ethereum Computer, what I like about it is that it's a project that I think is well suited for, I think, future adoption, maybe, if it could ever see it, because we have to take into consideration, for future adoption, there needs to be developers, right? There needs to be developers first that kind of believe in the project, and then later on the adoption comes along because these developers, they build something. But developers, they often don't want to build in places that feels a little bit too complicated, because a lot of these developers that know like Python, C++, and all this type of stuff, they're already used to doing what they're doing. Why experiment with another place like, oh, maybe they're in a computer if it's not going to be easy? If it's going to be challenging, no one's going to really want to do that, right? Which is why I think Dfinity did such an impressive thing by preemptively thinking about this type of stuff and not only just having Motoko be the thing that is like, I guess, able to be used, I suppose, because Motoko is a programming language that is, designed by Dfinity. And when it comes to the Ethereum Computer, it's not like it only can support that. Like, for instance, through canister development kits, we see things like being supported, for instance, in the case of TypeScript, Python, C++, Solidity, and even JavaScript. So when it comes to other projects out there, they automatically have just segmented off a good amount of developers just because they have this proprietary programming language that a lot of developers out there simply don't want to learn, right? A developer who's been developing for years, sometimes they don't want to learn something new just to kind of experiment. Why would they do that? They want something that's a little bit more plug and play. What I like about the Ethereum Computer is that through these canister development kits, right, we see all these programming languages hypothetically being supported. That's what I like. If the Ethereum Computer didn't have this, I'd have a pretty tough time thinking about any sort of future adoption, but things start off with the development side of things first. The developers, they need to be in the project first. They need to develop something before we can actually see, I think, mass scale adoption. So without the developers, I think sometimes a project, what could it do really long term? Hypothetically, I think in some cases, maybe not too much. So I like how the Ethereum Computer has that aspect. So as of right now, I'm just waiting, and I think all these statistics that I'm seeing when it comes to ICP, I'm pretty impressed so far. But as of right now, it's just pretty much the same as always. Waiting, holding, staying patient. This is just my perspective, not telling anyone to do anything, but yeah, that's pretty much all I'm doing as of right now. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's been Lee the Captain.